you very much. I think we should then start. I've just been told that there is now security at the door. Nuktula, I don't seem to see anybody there. There's a police officer. Okay. No, that's fine. That's fine. Okay, I think we should go back to our own task.
My Lord, I just finished asking Mr. Roots a question.
Yeah, he should come forward. Mr. Roots, can you come forward, please?
Mr. Roots, I just asked you a question which you were in the process of answering before the interruption. Is there anything else that you intended on saying about, if I recall, the question was on whether there is a difference between singing or chanting the words "kill the Boer," as was chanted in the video that we showed today, versus some of the videos from yesterday which have the terms "kiss the Boer" in the context of "shoot to kill."
Yes, thank you. So the most important part of my answer, which I was busy finishing, so I'll just make the point, is that to my mind there's no difference between singing "shoot the Boer" or "kiss the Boer" as opposed to "kill the Boer" if the rest of the song is still "shoot to kill" and so forth, and you still make hand gestures imitating a machine gun, and you still imitate the sounds of a machine gun. But if there is a difference, if you sometimes sing "kiss the Boer," that to me is an acknowledgement that it is wrong to sing "kill the Boer." That's why you change the lyrics. And now, if you sometimes sing "kiss the Boer," and suddenly when you're angry you start singing "kill the Boer," to me that is worse, because then it clearly indicates that you know you shouldn't be singing the song, but you keep singing it despite that.
Do you have any concerns about being able to access the courts and exit the court during the proceedings of this matter?
My Lord, yes, I do. We've had some trouble every day since Monday, getting in and out of the court. And people screaming and chanting things is one thing. It's annoying, and it's probably a violation of our rights, you could say. But people physically barring the gate is a serious problem. People disrupting the flow in and outside, into and out of the courtroom is a serious problem. And people, we've had a few instances of one of my colleagues, for example, was walking and someone held threw a flag sort of over her head, so the flag was in her face as she was trying to. That to me is a serious problem. People, apologies for the language, but people screaming things like "fuck you" if you walk in and out of the court is a serious problem. And just being surrounded by people dancing and chanting things like "kill the Boer, kill the farmer" is a serious problem. And then people trying to physically take your property, grab your property that you are holding in your hands, which happened on Monday and on Tuesday, to me is also a serious problem.
Are you concerned about your safety and the safety of your team in entering and exiting the court?
Yes, we are concerned about our safety. We have been concerned since Monday. We had that discussion yesterday, and we had that discussion today. And the impression we get is very clearly that it seems to deteriorate in the sense that we are under the impression that we keep being under the impression that we need to implement more measures to take care of our safety. So we keep feeling more and more unsafe, if that's what you mean.
I have no further questions, Lord.
Thank you.
As the
Yes,
court
Mr.
pleases.
Kasibut.
As the court pleases, my lord. My lord, there was evidence that was led in relation to the interpretation of the impugned song.
Sorry,
of
the what?
the impugned song.
Okay.
Yeah. And I'm concerned that once I venture into that terrain, then it's a slippery slope, because the very subject matter of this case is precisely that song. And my considered view that it's a legal question rather than one of fact, except for, of course, to an extent whether the word kiss or kill was used. So for that, with that proviso in mind, I'll cross Mr. Rhodes on the questions I'll cross him on the understanding that that's the reason I would rather not go to the question of kill or kiss.
I'm not sure I'm with you. Are you saying you want question on, for example, there was a clipper that was played now, and they were singing there. Are you saying you're not going to question on the what was sung?
Yes, no, I certainly will, my lord.
Okay.
Particularly when I deal with my witnesses, rather. All I'm simply saying is I do not want to venture into the terrain of what the song actually means, whether it constitutes hate speech or not. All I'm simply saying is we're going to test the factual aspect of the issue and not necessarily deal with the legal submissions.
Okay.
Good afternoon again, Mr. Rhodes. You did say that yesterday, just prior to the incident that has been shown in the videos, you had responded to one of, I imagine, the security guards that you did not expect any incident. Is that so?
Yes.
Yes. And you would have said that precisely because you had no
Sorry,
reason.
I didn't hear well, and I don't think I understand. Is the question whether you said the security, or you said there would be no trouble, or the security said there would be no trouble?
I'll rephrase the question,
Okay.
my lord. Mr. Rhodes, it was your evidence that in response to a security guard cautioning you about leaving court at that particular point, your response to that question was you did not expect any incident. Is that so?
That's correct. I just had to clarify that that was on Monday.
It was on Monday. No, precisely. My correction, you're correct, yes. And the reason you said that was because there was no reason to believe there would be any incident.
Yeah, I don't know if there was no reason to believe. Maybe you could say that. I wouldn't frame it that way. I didn't want the security guard said to us that we have to leave through a different exit.
Yes.
I thought that was quite inconvenient to arrange for the vehicles to pick us up at a different parking for us to walk, which sounded to me like it was on the other side of the courtroom building. I just wanted to go home, so I said to him, let's just use this exit.
Sure. And I accept that. But the proposition is slightly different. You must have then, that's the reasonable inference, it was not worth going to the other building because you did not see harm. Because if you did, surely the inconvenience of walking to the next building would have been preferable. Not so.
I would frame it differently. I think if the people protesting outside the court did try to do something, I believe it would be to their own detriment. So I expected that I cannot say to you under oath that I was completely convinced that there's no possibility of anything happening outside the courtroom. That's not what I thought.
Very well. I'm going to ask the question again, Mr. Rhodes. Bearing in mind the warning you got, excuse me, from the security guard, you take the decision to go through the gate that you've been warned about because you do not expect any incident. That can only mean there is no incident that is worth avoiding. Surely that must be the inference.
Yes, you can say that.
I have no further questions, Your Lordship.
Thank you very much. Re-examination, Mr.
Just one point of clarification. My learned friend's questions, I take it, pertain to the events on Monday and not to the events shown in the video from yesterday. Is that correct?
That's correct.
I have no further questions, my lord.
Yes, Mr. Kasiboto.
Your Lordship, my learned friend has just advised it's lunchtime. My proposal to him and my proposal to court is that we deal with the next witness. It will just be one. I assume it's not going to detain us for too long. Thereafter, then we can take the lunch break.
So this witness would stand down.
This witness will stand down, Your Lordship.
Okay. And that's the witness still relating to the yesterday's incident.
Yes, Your Lordship, it will be version dealing with the video.
Okay. That's fine. How much time do we need for, it's now 1 o'clock? We'll be back by 2 o'clock.
So, Your Lordship, what I'm saying is I'm suggesting that this witness stands down. I call the next witness, which shouldn't take more than 5 minutes. And then Mr. Oppenheimer, if he so desires, he will cross. And the re-exam would probably be a second.
Okay.
And then we can take the lunch agenda.
Oh, okay, that's fine. But then let's make sure we don't slip off in terms of the procedures. Do I take it that for the record, Mr. Oppenheimer closes his case if you're going to be calling your witness?
Yes, my lord.
Okay, thank you very much. So the case is now closed on the complaint. Thank you. Okay, Mr. Kasiboto, you can call your witness.
Thank you, Mr. Roots.
State your name and name. Do you have any objection in taking this oath? No. Do you swear that evidence you're about to give is the truth, the whole truth, nothing else but the truth? If so, raise your right hand and testify to God. So help me God.
Thank you very much. You may be seated if you wish, but before then, can you just spell out your name for us so that we don't...
It's L-W-A-N-D-I-L.
L...
W-A...
W-A...
N-D-I-L-E.
Luandi. Luandile, that's the name. The surname?
N-T... W-E-N-Z-E.
N-T-W-E...
N-T... W...
Yes.
E...
Yes.
N-Z-E.
I hope the record will have it, but no, I do need to find to get the correct surname. It's N-T-W-E-N-T...
N-G. N-G, T for Gogo.
T for?
G.
Well, Council, can you help me?
Perhaps I was about to ask Mrs. Noktula if she would mind just writing a note to Judge.
Yes, thank you very much. Thank you. Ngwenze. Am I pronouncing it correctly?
Yeah,
Ngwenze.
correct.
Okay, thank you. Now I do this because I see sometimes on the record people's names spelled in whatever way. Mine is even worse. Mine has got sometimes a G and an I and an N. It's one of those things. And Council does it, and I like it because some of them, even when they put up their draft orders, they'll put it with a wrong spelling. And I'll say, okay, thank you very much. I'm not the judge who presided over this matter, so go and find the judge. Yeah. No, thank you very much, Mr. Ngwenze.
Good afternoon, Mr. Ngwenze. Well, just as a bit of protocol, you'll excuse me, Your Lordship. I just want to familiarize client with protocol on how to respond.
That's fine.
It's something I overlooked. If you don't mind, can I consult with him for a second?
Yes.
My apologies. Good afternoon. Thank you, Your Lordship. Good afternoon, Mr. Ngwenzi. Were you present in court when the video footages were being displayed in court earlier?
Yes, I was present.
Yes. Were you in the video?
Yeah, there is some of the videos where I appeared.
Okay. And who were you with at the gate?
With the members of
Is it? Were all individuals?
Just speak a little bit loud, Mr. Ngwenze, and just face the court so that I get your voice.
At what point did you lose him, Your Lordship?
Sorry?
At what point did you lose him?
No, I got him all, but just that he's speaking a bit.
Okay.
He says, the question was, were you at the gate?
Correct.
And he says he was.
Correct.
Yes.
Who were you with at the gate?
I was with the members of the EFF.
Were all the individuals that were with members of the EFF?
No, not all of them members of the EFF.
On the video footage that was shown in court earlier, were you able to identify a person or persons that are not members of the EFF?
Yes, I can identify.
I don't know, unless my learned friend would want to raise a dispute around this. Rather than replaying the footage, I'll just ask him to describe the person he's referring to.
Okay, go ahead.
The person you've referred to as not a member of the EFF, do you want to describe him to court?
I can describe him to court, yes.
Then perhaps identify him by the clothes he was wearing.
Yes, I can also identify him with the clothes he was wearing. But the problem is that it was not one person who's one of the member of the EFF.
Okay, that's fine. Describe the first one by the clothing they were wearing.
The other one on Monday was wearing a black three-quarter and a black t-shirt with a cut. Yeah.
Black?
Black three-quarter and a black t-shirt with a cut.
Was there any other person who was not an EFF member?
Yes, Mr. But I cannot remember all of them because I was not marking up of that. But I can remember one or two. Yeah.
Okay. So you've testified earlier that you were at the gate on the footage of the videos, were you not?
Yes, Mr.
Why were you at the gate?
We were singing outside the gate. And while we were singing, a security guard wearing a camouflage clothes of Mahotwan approached us and told us we must move beside the gate. There are people who are going to come outside. Then we questioned him, why must we move aside? Because people have been going in and out. Who is so special that is going to come outside? Because people have been coming outside and going inside. So who is so special that is going to come outside? Then after we asked the security guard that question, he sweated us, he called us rascals. When he called us rascals, he also promised to beat one of our own. When I say our own, I'm talking about the members of the EFF. He also
Okay, just hold on there. Just hold on there. So for the benefit of the court, just pace your speech, and if you don't mind, answer in short sentences and directly what I'm asking you, and it would be easier to deal with it that way. I'm going to get to the point where you deal with that question. So you say there was a security guard at the gates at the point you were at the gate.
Yes.
Yes. How close were you to the gate?
We were not so close to the gate to such an extent that person can't go in or can't go out.
Yes. And where were the security guards at that point, particularly the one you made reference to?
The security guard came from outside, others came from inside, others were outside. Then the security guard who approached us came from inside.
Okay. And then what happened? So I imagine there was that discussion happening at the gate. Then what happened?
When the security guard approached us to move to shift next to the gate, we asked him a question: why must we shift? Because people have been going in and out. Who is so special that is going to come out of the court?
Yes. Now, just hold on. Sorry. And then, as that discussion is happening, are there people that were coming out of court?
No, at that moment there was no one. There were regular people who were going in and out and were not complaining.
Okay. And then, did the witness who just took the stand now approach the gate at any point?
By the time the security guard was approaching us or talking with us, no, I didn't see him. He came later when we were busy arguing with the securities.
So at the point you're arguing with the securities at the gate, the gentleman who had just taken the stand now, he approached the gate.
He approached the gate, yes.
Was he with anyone?
Yeah, he was with other people. He was with alone.
Yes.
But they were not walking on the line. Others were coming behind, but he was with alone.
Yes. Are you able to identify any of the persons that he was working with? Are they present in court?
I think I saw most of the people by him, but I can't compare who went out before, who went in
Yes.
before.
But you can confirm that the people that he was with are in court, at least some of them.
Yes, I can confirm.
Okay. And then at the point, his name is Mr. Rootz, so I'll refer to him as Mr. Rootz. At the point Mr. Rootz approached the gate, what happened?
At the point Mr. Rootz approached the gate, we were busy arguing with the securities. Mr. mentioned the same words that were mentioned by the securities to call us rascals. And he mentioned some
Sorry,
words.
just go a little bit slow. You say he called?
Thank you, my lord. He mentioned the same words that uttered the same words that were uttered by the security that were busy arguing with. Called us rascals and mentioned some African words which I don't understand. But from the
Just stop there. Sorry. Thank you. Sorry, my lord, just before I continue the questioning, for the sake of respect to Mr. Rootz, rather than just being referred to as a Mr., I'd suggest that the witness refers to him as just the witness and there's common understanding is referring to Mr. Rootz.
Okay.
So just call Mr. Rootz the witness. So you're saying the witness then approached the gate and he uttered what words slowly?
He called us rascals and some Afrikaner words which I don't know. I can't even remember them because I don't know Afrikaans.
Yes.
But
Just hold on. Do you remember his demeanor when you called to the Afrikaans words? In other words, how did you look?
from how I looked, he was swearing because he was young.
So let me understand. You don't know what he was saying, but you could tell by his posture and demeanor that he was swearing at you in Afrikaans. Is that the evidence?
Yes.
Okay. And then what happened?
Then when Mr. Watts uttered those words, we said to him and the people he was working with, we got the racist. And then it started to be a war of words because they were calling us names that I can't understand because they were talking Afrikaans.
Yes.
Then that's when the verbal attack began because they were calling us words that words that I cannot interpret or even mention because it was Afrikaans.
Okay. Now, tell the court, at the point there was this altercation you're making reference to, were they still inside the premises of court or outside?
They were still inside the premises of the court. Yes, they were still inside.
Yes. And then we see footage from outside of the court. Can you confirm that you're part of the people that were in the footage outside of court?
Pardon?
The question I'm asking is, the footage, the videos we saw, some of the footage shows incidents outside of court, in other words, away from the gate. Can you confirm that?
But when the security and the police came to make peace,
Yes.
then they went out, because we were arguing with them inside. When
Yes.
they went out,
Yes.
and Mr. Rewards took out the cell phone.
Yes.
I don't know.
Just hold on. Okay. So there was a point that left the premises. Now, before we get to the cell phone, is there any incident that happened in between? Let me phrase it this way. How did Mr. Rewards and the cohort that he was with leave the premises?
The police had to come in and make peace because the rebel was.
Is it? And that's how they eventually left. Okay. And then tell us about the incident you were referring to about Mr. Rewards.
Mr. Rewards, when they were going outside,
Yes.
took out his cell phone.
Yes.
We went out to see. He took
Yes.
out his cell phone. He videoized. I don't know whether he was videoizing or shooting at us.
Yes.
But he was carrying the cell phone.
Yes.
Then one guy, I don't know his name.
Yes.
One guy approached Mr. Rewards
Yes.
to tell him that, hey, Papa, stop what you are doing.
Yes.
Then Mr. Rewards, I don't know whether the securities of the police were accompanying them or what.
Yes.
Stop what you are doing.
Yes.
Then they attacked each other. But then Mr. Rewards, there is a time when Mr. Rewards turned like he wanted it to be physical because it was verbal, it was not physical.
So did you see that in the footage? In other words, Mr. Rewards turning and approaching someone?
No, I didn't see it.
Okay. Is this an account you heard?
Yes.
Okay. But you were still part of the cohort that was outside?
Yes.
Okay. Now, when you say they left the premises and the cops, or rather the police, helped you out, were any of you involved in moving the people that were blocking the gate?
Yeah, some of the EFF members helped the police to end that hot conversation that was going.
Yes. Okay. Your Lordship, I've had a discussion with my friend about the issue of the witness confirming the evidence, well, the hearsay of one of the witnesses. He suggested he takes no issue, he can take it that it's confirmed. Just by way of the last point I'm making, Your Lordship, is this. One would appreciate that the witness probably saw the video footage once, which was earlier today. I do not know whether we'd have to play the footage again, but his version to the effect that he didn't see Mr. Rewards turn and approach someone because he personally didn't see it. I can, however, confirm there is such footage, and to an extent there's a dispute in that regard, then you can have reference to the footage. And at that point, I've concluded my evidence with the witness.
So I was just still recording Mr. Genze. You said that at that time some EFF members, I just want to make sure, you say some of the EFF members intervened together with the police. Thank you very much. Cross-examination. Oh, sorry.
Sorry, my Lordship, there's just a tail that I need to fix here in relation to one particular aspect. Sorry, Mr. Ngwenze, just one thing. So you've testified that there was an altercation, there's a point Mr. Rewards was taking what you believe would have been footage or a picture. That was your evidence, correct?
Yes.
And you say that one of the people that were around tried to stop him from taking the footage. Is that correct? Yes. Now, did you see that happening personally?
Yes, I saw it.
Okay. Did at any point, in other words, the person you are referring to as having stopped Mr. Rhodes from taking footage, did he at any point dispossess Mr. Rhodes of the cell phone?
No, sir.
And you say you've got a personal account of that. In other words, you saw it yourself. Thank you. I have no further questions, Your Lordship.
Thank you. Yes, sir.
You're a member of the EFF, is that correct? Did you take part in blocking the exits from court into the street?
No.
Did you see other members of the EFF blocking the exit?
There is no member of the EFF blocking exits.
When you saw that video, you make mention of two people who are not members of the EFF. One is a man in black and one is someone else. Is it your contention that the man in black was the only person who was blocking the exit?
I never said he was blocking the exits.
So was no one blocking the exit?
No one.
No one was blocking the exit. When you saw the video and you saw Mr. Roots and myself and the other lawyers on the one side of the court building and EFF members at the gate, what was occurring there?
Pardon, sir?
What was occurring? Were we given free passage to exit or not?
When you and Renusa and Mr. Rewards approached the gates,
Yes.
Mr. Rewards swept us. We waited.
I'm asking if we were given free passage to exit. Could we leave at our own will, or were you and the other members of the EFF stopping us from leaving?
No one.
No one was stopping us. So when you see the video and you see a group of 25 people blocking a very narrow exit and physically pushing against the police and the private security, is it your contention that you are not blocking the exit?
Yes.
I will put it to you that that is detached from reality. How do you understand the term blocking an exit?
Blocking an exit is closing a gate and refuse someone to go out. That is blocking an exit from my own understanding.
Yes, so now you know that gate has two gates to it. Did anyone from the EFF move one part of those gates to stop Mr. Roots and the rest of us from exiting? Did they stand in the space between the metal gates and stop you from exiting?
Yes, they were standing.
They were standing in the gate. Could Mr. Roots freely exit through the crowd?
If you wanted to exit, you would exit.
Did you take any measures to physically stop the exit? Or did you, as soon as Mr. Roots and the rest of us wanted to exit, did you part ways or did you stop?
No, we stopped because we were busy arguing with the securities. And Mr. Rewards was arguing with also Mr. Rewards because Mr. Rewards came and insulted us.
So you're saying you were insulted, but did you stop him from exiting?
No, we didn't stop.
You didn't stop him from exiting. All right. I won't push the points any further. When Mr. Roots eventually was allowed to exit, you engaged in singing and chanting the words, "Kill the Boer." Is that correct?
No, that is not correct.
Did the crowd sing and chant, "Kill the Boer"?
I think my counsellor will address it.
You're the one who's testifying right now. Did the crowd say that or not?
They never said kill. I never.
My Lord, I have no further questions for this
I
witness.
didn't hear the last answer. Can you just give the last answer?
We were singing Kiss the Boer, not Kill the Boer. No one was singing.
Sorry, so you said the first answer was no one was singing. Your second answer is you were singing "Kiss the Boer," not "Kill the Boer."
No one was singing Kill the Boer.
No one was singing "Kill the Boer." When video footage was shown to this court but moments ago, what did you hear in that footage?
I heard people singing Kiss the Boer.
Yes. Do you have any hearing impediments? Do you struggle to hear?
No, I don't.
So you hear normally. So when you heard that video, you're telling me now, honestly, under oath, that you heard the words "kiss the Boer."
Yes, that's what I heard.
Yes, okay. And so what you heard on the day, yesterday, what you heard in court was the identical of "kiss the Boer."
Because that's what I was singing. That's what I heard.
Okay. Now I put it to you that every single person in this court watched that video and very clearly heard the words kill the Boer being sung. Is it still your contention that the words kiss the Boer were being sung?
How do I say?
Every single person in this court watched that video, and every single person in this court could hear the words kill the Boer being sung repeatedly. Is it still your contention that the words being sung in that video are kiss the Boer?
Yes, it's kiss the Boer, not kill the Boer.
Okay. My Lord, I have no further questions.
Thank you. Re-examination.
So just to confirm, your evidence when you were being cross-examined by my learned friend was that you understand that there's a difference between blocking the gate and standing at the gate. What you deny is that, okay, let me take a step back. Perhaps let me just go there, actually. So what you understand is that when someone says you're blocking the gate, that means you're preventing someone from leaving. Whereas when you are standing by the gate, you're not necessarily blocking. That's your understanding of the word block. Okay. And you also say, if I heard you correctly, that you heard kiss the Boer and you heard nothing, well, no one sing kill the Boer, is that correct?
Yes.
And you're saying you take that view because the words you were actually singing were kiss the Boer.
Yes.
Now, let me ask you this. Was there any noise in that area at the time, taking into account what you attested to earlier, which is there were people shouting at each other and there was singing? Does that mean there was noise in the area at the time?
Yes.
Yes. And all you could hear was kiss the Boer.
Yes.
No further questions.
Sorry, you said that one person engaged in a verbal exchange with, I take it was with Mr. Rhodes. You're saying that someone engaged in a verbal exchange, and I take it was with Mr. Rhodes, one of the people amongst the crowd.
That's correct.
And then this person asked, Mr. Rhodes then took out the cell phone, and this person asked, what are you doing in taking the footage?
Yes.
Okay. And then you also say that from the footage we've seen here and listened to, the only word you heard was kiss the Boer and not kill the Boer.
Yes.
The other clarity I just want to seek from you is, did you say you were also singing, or you said you only heard?
I was singing.
You were singing. Okay. just going back to the gate, you say initially you engage with a security officer who said to you that there are people coming, you must move away.
That's correct.
And then you debated with him as to who are these people and why should we move away. And then at some point, Mr. Rhodes approached the gate, and then he called you what?
He called us rascals, minors, and some.
What?
Rascals.
Rascals.
African language, which I couldn't understand in that country.
Okay. Just give me one turn. He called you rascals and used another Afrikaans word. Okay, I've got that. And what was your response? You said something, we called him
We called him racist.
racist. And at that stage, they were still inside the courtyard.
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you very much. Any follow-up question for my questions?
No, my lord.
Thank you, Mr. Nama. Mr.
None from me either.
Thank you very much. Mr. Gwenze, thank you very much. You are excused. Right. Would it be an appropriate time for us to take the lunch break, and then we'll proceed with the cross-examination of Mr. Rhodes after lunch?
Yes, my lord. Just one thing I should maybe say at this juncture. My lord, with regards to this episode, it's our contention that it should be a part of the main proceedings in the sense that they're intimately connected. But there's another reason which it was led, is that it is vitally important that these proceedings are conducted in a manner that is civil, that all parties, the legal representatives and all witnesses feel safe in being able to enter and exit the court. And while they're in the court itself, we've already had an incident of people protesting in the court. And so we'd seek a directive on that front, just so that the proceedings can proceed in a peaceful manner. Inside the court precinct might be the better way of describing it, not merely this particular courtroom.
Okay. Thank you. Mr. Sibuto?
My Lord, in relation to the suggestion that this incident formed part of the process, we'll of course oppose that. No application of the sort has been brought. What we have are pleadings, and we are proceeding on the basis of those proceedings, of those pleadings rather. To an extent, my learned friend wants to introduce this as evidence and form part of the record, then a proper application should be brought in that respect. As a court, please.
Okay. Mr. Nama, your response to that?
My Lord, I would submit it is on the record. The nature of equality court proceedings is different in that the Act describes them as informal proceedings, that the rules of evidence are different. It is clearly being seen by the press. It would be strange to exclude it from the evidence. It is evidence of the EFF singing the songs "Kill the Boer" and then denying it under oath. Of course, it must form part of these proceedings. If a directive as to how to amend the papers to include them needs to be issued, then so be it. I think it is mentioned in our papers that we would include, we make reference to a series of songs and a series of speeches. The evidence bundle has been updated throughout these proceedings, and I would submit that this is part of that evidence.
But my understanding was at the beginning, this was being brought in, I just want to look at my notes, it was an application, it was a complaint lodged by the applicant in the main case concerning an incident that occurred on Tuesday afternoon. And in fact, what I wanted to understand, because I wasn't too sure as to what direction it's taking, was, and then I was anticipating that both parties will address me as to what relief should I grant in relation to the evidence that's now before me regarding Tuesday. And one of the questions that I had thought I would ask you is, the complaint itself doesn't say what is the relief relating to Tuesday, but it seems you now say the whole evidence as it stands should then be admitted into the main case.
Yes, in other words, it may be that because the words themselves are used, it might be premature to make a judgment about the content of those words. The bit that is sought in the interim is just, as I said, the second part of my statement, which is in relation to a directive regarding the safety of the conduct of the trial and around the court precinct. And that we would appreciate a directive from your Lordship. The issue about the content of that can all be dealt with in argument at the end of the matter.
Okay. Mr. Kasibuto?
Your Lordship would recall, and I'm sure the record will show, at the very start of this discussion, I specifically said, my understanding was, as per my discussion with my learned friend, that all we're seeking is a ruling. He then stood and spoke of evidence. At that very point, I interjected and I said, well, once you start talking about witnesses and evidence, the record will show. Then we are venturing in a whole completely different terrain. And I specifically said, I'm not too sure what process we are now following once we start talking about evidence and witnesses and cross-examination and so forth. But I was happy to proceed with the process for the sake of the ruling, which is the very first statement that I made, that my understanding, this is just about a ruling in terms of how court process will proceed and security measures and so on. To the extent now there's a suggestion that this should form part of the record for purposes of trial, there's clear prejudice here. I've merely consulted with the previous witness for a space of 15 minutes, and now suddenly it's going to form part of the record without proper preparation, without proper consideration of the evidence. That is clearly prejudicial, particularly if I move from the premise this is solely for the purpose of the ruling. For that reason, Your Lordship, I insist that an application must be brought. As the court pleases.
Thank you very much. I think I'd like to deal with the issue of the safety and the freedom to participate in the court proceedings. Let me indicate that we had an incident earlier on. I have, during the adjournment, had an opportunity to discuss with the court manager, and she has assured me that she was going to attend to whatever may have been the lack of security, because from my side, I was expecting that if there's any incident, any time, including as we're sitting here, security should come in immediately. Security came in, they stood next to the people that were singing. I tried to call them, I'm sure everybody heard that. She never even looked to the side of the judge to see what is happening. My observation of the security officer, she never even looked to observe if there were any other disturbances, if there was any trouble that any one of us sitting in this court may be facing. She actually left without even looking to the side of the judge. Now, I thought, in my simple knowledge of security, you walk into a place where there is some disturbances, you try and establish what is going on. But I saw the two ladies leaving with their placards freely out of the court, and as I sit here, I'm not even sure whether they were ever called to say what you were doing was wrong. And what I sought to call the attention of the security for was to say to her she must call them to come to the front, and maybe they had an explanation to give to me why suddenly today they were doing what they were doing. And I would have loved to hear from them why they're not respecting us. Everybody seated, they simply burst into a soul. But be that as it may, as I say, I have spoken to the court manager, and I would hope that the situation is now under control. I was assured at the beginning of the week that in as far as crowd control is concerned, that also has been put in place. So as I said here, I was quite confident that every single person who has decided to come to this court would feel free and feel safe. I would urge everybody, both the parties, in particular the main role players in this dispute, to act with restraint. I recognize that a dispute of this nature would raise emotions, tempers, and tensions. But I think if we have agreed that the court is the final arbiter in terms of the differences between ourselves, give that opportunity so that you can resolve the dispute in the most amicable way and in terms of the rule of law. So I would say, I urge, and I would not expect from any one of you sitting in here to undermine each other, to provoke each other, but also I think some of the people out of this court are your members upon whom you have influence. I think you need to also take responsibility to bring them to order. And both yourselves has actually brought attention to the public for them to come here. Any other person who's not your member and suddenly joins in to take advantage of the situation, I think you also have an obligation to deal with that person. And at best I would say, if you can't deal with that person in terms of reprimanding and calling them to order, you may want to approach the police and indicate to the police, this person is not our member and is here simply to come and cause trouble. So as far as I'm concerned where we are, we should be able to proceed with safety. If there's anything else, the court manager has promised me that she will address this issue and make sure that it is properly controlled. And if I may also say that if security advises, please take the advice. These are people who are trained. These are people who understand the situation, and I would take it working with the police. They would have analyzed the situation. So please, if they say to you, today we're not going to allow you to enter here, we're going to enter there, please take their advice. And I would say all of us should listen to what they say. Okay, I think that's all what I would say. I think then in terms of the case itself, the complaint which was lodged today, or for which evidence was led, I think that I would stand it down for the purposes of arguing probably at the end of the matter as to whether it forms part of the main case or it does not. And maybe I should say this, Mr. Oppenheimer, if you're going to want to have the evidence presented to form part of my consideration of the dispute, it seems to me that a formal application may need to be brought. And therefore, I would expect both yourself and your colleague to then formulate an approach as to how we should deal with it. And maybe at some stage we would have to meet and discuss as to how we're going to deal with such an application. Having said that, unless there's anything from council, I would like to adjourn for lunch. Okay, we will adjourn. It's now 20 to 2. Can we be back by 20 to 3? The court shall adjourn.